President, please be seated. The court is back in session, and the floor is given to the co-prosecutor to resume their line of questioning. You may now proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honours, Counsel and the public. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. This morning we talked about, you talked about the creation of this long sword group that operated in your area, and you said that this group was established after the southwest zone came to Kang Mias. You said that these people operated with swords, they carried swords, and you didn't dare to approach them. And in your statement as well, you said that you were very afraid of them. How many people were in the long sword group?
But
Answer regarding the members of the long sword group. I do not know how many of them within that group. As I said, did not dare to approach them. Mic is not on.
Can you provide an approximate number of the people? Would it be 10, 50, 100, or do you just simply don't know?
but
Answer: I do not know about the figure. As I told you, I did not dare to approach them. Sometimes I would see them walking in a group of 2 or 3. For the exact number of the group, I do not know.
Was the long sword group formed just to operate in your commune, in Phimchakang commune, or was it formed to operate in the whole district of Kang Mias?
Answer: on this point, I do not have the knowledge about the structure or operation of the group. All I could see at that time is that they were carrying swords and walking around, and I do not know where they were going to at that time.
You said you ate your meals in communal dining halls. Is that right? During the period after the Southwest Zone cadre arrived, around 1977, did you eat in communal dining halls for that whole 2-year period?
but
Answer: for a period of 2 years, I did not have any chances to have the cooked rice, but a gruel.
I understand, but in your evidence you've said that you saw the large group of Cham people be taken to Wat Otrakon and taken inside the gates whilst you're in eating a meal at a dining hall, I believe. Did you have your gruel in a common eating area?
បាទកន្លែងផ្ទះ
Answer. I ate my meal at that kitchen for a period of 2 years. There was no other places. There were no other places that I was allowed to eat my meal, but in the kitchen.
And was that kitchen for people that lived in Sambal Mias Village A?
បាទសម្រាប់ទៅក្នុងសម្បូរ
Answer. Yes, that is true. The kitchen was created for Sambuamia A village only.
And did the longsword unit or did some of their members, did they eat in that kitchen as well?
កន្លែង
Answer. I do not know where they went to have meal. I ate my meal together with the workers in the cooperative.
You said in your statement that the longsword unit was formed with people from the southwest zone and some base people. Do you know any of those base people that were in the longsword group?
Answer. Members within the longsword group, some of them had been killed after the end of the regime because some of these members arrested Cham people during the period. Later on, after the end of the regime, they were arrested and killed by villagers.
Was Tay Kim Hoi a person that you know?
Answer. I have never met him. We were living in the same village.
Sorry, I mispronounced his name. Tay Kim Hun. Was he living in the same village as you?
No, we were not working together.
And did you know him during the Democratic Kampuchea period?
Answer. I started to know him in 1977 when he came to work in my cooperative.
Was he in the longsword group?
Answer. Tai Kum Huan. I have never seen him within the group of the longsword. I was afraid of that group. I only focus on my work, paddling the water wheel.
Thank you. I'd like to read out a portion of a statement from another witness, E319/19.3.93 at 01035843. And in fact, it's at answer number 15. This interview is numbered with the answers. So if I can avoid the Khmer and French. This...
Excusez-moi. Yes, please, I'm sorry.
President, please hold on, Mr. Witness. You may now proceed. Counsel for Mr. Kiew Samphan.
Yes, Mr. President, without getting into detail, but I'd like to object to the use of this document, which a priori is not a document that has been tendered into evidence. It's a document that right now is the subject of a submission before the chamber, so I object strongly to the production of this document. That is not a document that has been put before the chamber.
Mr. President, I think it's before the chamber as to whether it's admitted or not. Obviously, Your Honours will deal with that in due course. However, it's a document that's on the case file, and the person in this document has some relevant evidence which can be put towards this witness, particularly in relation to the Longsword Group and the pagoda. And I would ask, I think it's appropriate to have the opportunity to put that information before the witness to get him to comment on it. Whether you subsequently admit it or not is another question. We're not putting it forward. The purpose of the question is not as evidence, but to actually see whether it refreshes the witness's memory.
President, you may now proceed, Judge Lavanya.
Yes, I haven't had the time to check which document this is exactly, but is it maybe by chance the interview of a witness whom the chamber intends to hear and a witness who is the object of dispute right now?
At the moment, the chamber hasn't got this witness on their list, but we may be proposing for that to happen.
And when you say that the document is on the case file, you mean that it has been made available to the parties, or do you mean that the chamber ruled on its admissibility?
It's certainly being made available to the parties. As far as the ruling on the admissibility, I'm not sure whether it was in the batch of documents that the Kiew Samphan team believed wasn't put before the chamber, but in fact was. But so I'm unaware of the status of the document, other than to say it's been disclosed and disclosed to the defence as well.
Well, in order to make sure that everything is perfectly clear, so must we understand that you object to the use of this document, first of all, because it was not deemed admissible, and also because it is part of the objections that you raised in your previous submissions regarding the scope and the obligations of the prosecution. It's indeed for both of these reasons that we object to the use of this document. In fact, there's even a third reason, because today what the prosecution is telling us is that as of the moment when the document, that the documents have been disclosed to us, let's say in a folder, and that has not been the subject of a request for being admitted, and that this document is not on the parties' lists. Well, for us, this is we don't believe that this is enough to use this document before the chamber. This document is not being considered by the chamber for the moment. Even if we're objecting to the witness, this document is not part of an 87.4 submission that would have been filed before the chamber. This document is, of course, part of the documents that the chamber said during a previous hearing that these documents were not yet considered as put before the chamber, but only as made available to the parties. So in that case, I don't believe that this is the kind of evidence we can use in this case 00202. as long as there hasn't been a decision by the Chamber with regard to our request, as well as with regard to an 87.4 request that the prosecution may have formulated. So for all of these reasons, I ask that the prosecution not use this document.
Can I just ask a question? I agree, obviously, with all you said, but the normal way is an 87.4 request, but we have actually had a practice for exceptional cases, some of them actually on requests from the defense teams, to put documents before the Chamber in cases where none of the other parties objects. The normal thing is 87.4, very clear, no question, but as I said, on exceptional basis we have allowed that. So my question is, what is the substantive, beside the procedural issue, what, if any, is the substantive objection against putting this document before the Chamber in this informal and exceptional way?
I'm not sure that I understood everything, or at least the nuances in your question. So you're asking me what the sources of my objection, if I understood correctly? I didn't quite get it. I'm sorry. Well, what the Chamber would like to know is what are the legal arguments that you can use to support your objection to the putting before the Chamber of this document. I understood that these arguments are arguments that are already in the motion that you already filed previously. Absolutely. And in order to react to what I understood from Judge Fentz, well, when there were exceptions, it was when the parties did not object to them. But in this case, we are objecting. So the exceptional circumstance you're speaking about, it does not apply here because we are indeed objecting to the use of this document now.
My question was the basis, but you have answered that. The basis is your written request. Yes.
Your Honour, if I can just be brief, this will be the subject of a Rule 87.4 application. I can make one application now that it be put before the Chamber, but it will be the subject to a written 87.4 application. And as Your Honours may know, it's a statement from someone that worked at the security centre, at the pagoda, and he has some common topics which he gives evidence on, which this witness also does as well. And I would say that for a procedural issue, to lose a unique substantial opportunity to put evidence before a witness is a greater cost than the procedural point.
Mr. President, would you allow me to ask a question to the prosecution and explain to me why it was that they were objecting last week to me using an excerpt in a Human Rights Watch report which was on the case file and in respect of which a Rule 87 request was made by the Q-Sampanti. What's the difference between this document that you would like to discuss with the witness and the previous objection of last week?
Maître Copé, si je peux intervenir.
So, Copé, please, maybe you didn't understand everything. The Human Rights Watch report was declared unadmissible. It is not on the case file. Well, and this document is also not on the case file. The document that the co-prosecutor wishes to use has exactly the same status. That is a document that has been identified by the Chamber as having been disclosed to the parties, but has not yet been ruled upon whether admission or not. But there is no decision to accept this document. I don't know if it's an interpretation problem, but I believe I understood that the co-prosecutor was telling us that we have to ignore the procedure because this document is so important. I don't understand. how in a courtroom, in a criminal trial, in which there was an investigation, in which the co-prosecutors were present and who had all the time to listen to a number of witnesses before. So how is it possible that today I'm told that we should ignore the procedure? No, we should not ignore the procedure. There is a pending motion before you, which is extremely important for the defense. You have elements of principle with regard to the rights of the accused, with regard to the fact that you cannot take out ex nihilo a whole, at any moment, procedural elements that once again come from another case and from another and from an investigation that's in the process. So here, once again, I'm asking you to reject the co-prosecutor's request here.
President, the objection by counsel for Mr. Kyu Sampon is sustained in relation to the document E319/19.3.93. The reason of the chamber is that the prosecutor has not submitted the request to present this document in accordance with internal rule 87.3 and 4. Secondly, this document is within the list of documents objected by counsel for Mr. Kyu Sampon, and the request by counsel for Mr. Kyu Sampon is now pending before the chamber. President, regarding the documents which are admitted by the chamber, these documents are allowed to use before the chamber, and for documents which are filed in time in the interface, those documents can be used before the chamber on some occasions. So parties have to be clear on the documents to be presented before the chamber. Parties are required to submit the request to present document in accordance with internal rule 87.3 and 4 as soon as the chamber allow and admit those documents. Parties can present those documents.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, in relation to the Long Sword Group, is it the case that prior to 1977, the only combatant units in the commune were the sub-district militia?
បាទនៅ
Answer. There were only militiamen who were discharging their function within the commune. There were no long-sword group.
And you were one of those militiamen prior to the longsword group coming, is that correct?
Answer. That is correct.
Witness, you talked about the arrest and detention of the Chams at Wat Otrakon Pagoda, coming from Satsar village. Are there any other villages that you were aware of in the Democratic Kampuchea period where other Cham families were arrested?
Answer. Regarding this point, I have no knowledge of it. I only knew that the Cham people from Taikso were arrested.
I'd like to put to you a statement from a person that's provided some evidence, and this person was from the Long Sword Group, and the document is actually, Your Honours, I'll retract that statement because that document is before the chamber now. In your commune, particularly in your village that you lived, Sambomias Village A, were there any Chams living in that village?
Answer. No, no Cham people were living in Sambu A village. Cham people were living only in Sakso village.
And about how many Cham were living in that village?
Answer. Many of them were living in the entire village. I cannot tell you the exact figure of Cham people there.
And before these Cham were arrested and taken to the pagoda, were they allowed to practice their religion?
Answer. While I was living together with Cham people in Sakso village, Cham people were allowed to worship and practice their religion once in a while. However, in regards the food, I do not know whether there was any prohibition of any food.
Do you know why the Cham were taken from your village, or Satsao village, were taken to the pagoda?
Answer. On this point, I had already left the village when the Cham people were arrested. I have no idea because I had already left the area.
Why were you removed, or why did you move from being a militiaman to working in the cooperative? Why did that happen?
But
Answer. I do not know the reason I was removed into a cooperative. Although I was a member of militia group, I was assigned to raise and take care of cattle.
Did you do anything wrong to be moved from that position?
ខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងទេ
Answer. I do not know, sir. I was told to go and work in a cooperative, and I have no idea whether I had made any mistake at the time.
Who was the commander of your militia group whilst you were in it?
Nam and E were in charge at the time. However, later on, they were taken away and killed.
And how many were in your militia group?
There were 12 members in a group, including some Cham men.
And who were Nam and Wat Yai? Who were they killed by? Do you know?
I did not know about that. We heard that they were taken away and killed, but for whatever reasons, we did not know.
You mentioned earlier that the Southwest Zone cadre came to your area. Do you believe that they were killed by the Southwest Zone cadre or someone else?
President, Mr. Witness, please wait, and Councillor Copper, you have the floor.
I object, Mr. President. What the witness believes is irrelevant. Only things that he knows or has seen. Asking what he believes is asking for speculation. I object, therefore.
I can change the question, Your Honour. Did you know whether they were killed by the cadre of the Southwest Zone?
Yes, they were killed by the Southwest cadres after their arrival.
And how did you know that?
Because they were there before the arrival of the Southwest, and they simply disappeared after they arrived.
And when they disappeared, did you become the head of the commune militia?
I had been reassigned through the cooperative, and I had nothing to do with that or with the arrest.
No, I'm not saying you organised their arrest. I'm saying once they were taken away, did you become the head of the group, or how did you become to not be in the militia anymore?
Please repeat your question.
When they were taken away, who led your militia group when your two leaders had gone?
It was the Southwest group who actually made the appointment of those people from the ground up.
And who was appointed to your group?
As I said, I was not aware of this affair. I had been reassigned.
Mr. President, I think Your Honour had granted 40 minutes, so that would be till 2:10. I would ask for an extra 10 minutes because of that quite lengthy discussion about the document that was proposed to being used.
President, yes, the chamber grants you the extra time.
What was the name of the person that reassigned you?
I was never officially assigned as a member of the militia group, and later on, after I was reassigned to the cooperative, I did not know anything at all involving the militia.
No, I understand that, but who reassigned you once the other two were taken away?
Actually, they were there before I was reassigned to the cooperative.
So, can you answer the question, please? Who reassigned you to go to the cooperative?
It was Comrade Nam and Comrade E who assigned me to live and work at the cooperative.
And did they give you any reason?
I did not know the reason for the reassignment. I was reassigned, so I went. And I did not ask for any reason for the reassignment.
I'd now like to put to you a statement from a witness, E3/5252 at 00235516 in the English. And in the French 0026 9890 and the Khmer 00235021, and this witness has said this about you. When did Moy become the chief?
And the deputy prosecutor, please hold on. I noticed that the defense counsel for Kilsonpon is on her feet. You may proceed, counsel.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is not an objection. I crave the prosecutor for this interruption. The author of that statement has already testified before this chamber, and I think in all fairness to the witness, we can give the name of that person so that we know who said what.
I'm happy to do that, Your Honour. Witness, do you know a person by the name of Seng Srun?
Yes, I do.
And how did you know him in the Democratic Kampuchea period?
He lived in the same village.
Thank you. He was asked the question, when did Moy become the chief of the sub-district militia? And he answered, he was the chief since 1973 until the end of the Pol Pot regime in 1979. Why was the chief of the sub-district? Nam was the chief of the sub-district security, and Moy was the chief of the sub-district militia. The security office was located in Damnak Svay, but was later moved to Sambor Miaska village. Can you comment on that?
Thank you for your question. At that time, I was a member of the militia group, just an ordinary member. However, I was no longer there in 1973. He was chief of the militia group, and whenever we were required to join any combat, then we would be called. And I myself never stayed at the commune, and that's between 73 to 75. And by 75, all members were called to gather together in light of the preparation for the attack. And as I said from the outset, I was actually equipped with bow and arrow to guard the village. And I did not have any position at all at the commune level from 1973. I was simply a member of the militia group, and whenever we were called to prepare for the combat or to guard the village, then I would be called. And I actually lived with him from late 76 to through 1977.
And he also stated in his testimony that you and or your men arrested him and took him to the Damnak Snay security office. Did that occur?
Thank you for your question. No, I was not involved in the arrest. And as I said, I was a low-rank member of the militia group. Yes, he was arrested at that time. He was relocated and allowed to return. I did not involve in neither the arrest nor his release.
I'd like to read, well, firstly, the question is, after 1975, when the Khmer Rouge took control of Phnom Penh, did arrests start occurring in your commune, in your sub-district, as soon as the Khmer Rouge took power of Cambodia, took control of Phnom Penh in April 1975?
President, witness, please wait, and Councillor Coppert, you have the floor.
In all fairness to the witness, I think that's a difficult question because the area that he was living in was liberated already quite substantially earlier than April 75. He might be more familiar with Kampong Cham, the city, but I don't think the liberation of Phnom Penh would be any meaningful date to this witness in terms of where he was living.
Perhaps I'll just ask in a different way. Do you know when Phnom Penh was taken by the Khmer Rouge at the beginning of the Democratic Kampuchea period? Do you know what year that happened in?
It was in 1975.
After the Khmer Rouge took control of Phnom Penh, did arrests start to occur or increase in your area? Arrests of people in the area?
I was a witness who lived through the regime, and allow me to clarify the matter. People were evacuated from Phnom Penh in 1975, and in my area they were taken to Otakun Pagoda. I was there. And in fact, those people were told that they were taken for study sessions and then they disappeared. Then I knew in my heart that they were taken away and killed. I actually was living amongst those Cambodian people who were evacuated from Phnom Penh. I lived with a family whose wife was delivering the baby, and I actually helped her at the time. And of course, I knew the killing started in 1975 in my area.
And who was doing the killing in your area?
I did not know who did it, and I knew that those people were told that they were sent for study sessions. They were walked away and disappeared. And as I said, I knew in my heart that they were taken away and killed. And later on, those people were sent to live in various villages within the commune. Here I refer to the Phnom Penh people.
And what about any of the ethnic groups like the Cham? Were they moved to other areas or were they arrested in that early period from 1975 onwards, before the longsword, before the Southwest Zone came to the area?
I have already testified to that. I lived in 1976 with the Cham people, and none of the Cham people there was killed. And only after the arrival of the Southwest group in 1977, all of them were rounded up and smashed.
You mentioned before the longsword group came to the area or the commune, the only soldiers in the area were the sub-district militia. So was it the sub-district militia that was involved in the killing or the arrests that were occurring from 1975 until the Long Sword group arrived?
Regarding the commune militia group, starting from 1975, they did not involve in the arrest. It was the security forces who conducted the arrest. In the commune, as Saint Sun testified, the person would not be alive if that happened under the arrest of this group. But at that time, he was sent for re-education and released. And I was the one who actually transported food to him. And later on, he was released. And he was living in the cooperative that I was.
Thank you, Your Honour. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Witness.
President, the lead co-lawyers for civil parties, you have any questions for this witness? If not, then the chamber hands the floor to the defense teams. First to the defense team for Nuon Chea, and you may proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. Let me start with following up what the prosecution just asked you in relation to Seng Srun. Prosecution read an excerpt from witness Seng Srun's statement implicating you. Is it your testimony that Seng Srun, when it comes to you, has not been telling the truth?
Yes, he wanted to actually tell the court about his arrest, and I was the one who actually gave him food while he was there.
Why is it, if you know, that he is saying things about you which you say aren't true?
Allow me to respond to your question. As I have testified, I was a low-rank member of the militia group, and I did not involved in his arrest. I did not have any role I did not play any role in that. And I actually was the one who gave him food, and for that reason he survives today.
He also testified yesterday that his house was about 200 meters away from Wat O Trakun. You this morning also said that your house was about 200 meters away from the pagoda. Were you practically neighbors to each other?
Yes, Saint Srun house was about 200 meters to the west of the pagoda, and my house was about 200 meters to the east of the pagoda.
that is, of course, also possible. Do you know what Seng Srun's job was between the beginning of 77 and the end of 79? What was his daily business?
He did not have any role. He was simply living in the cooperative.
Was he a member of a unit of palm tree climbers?
I lived with him, but I did not know whether Saint Srun was assigned to climb palm trees, although we lived in the same cooperative. I was assigned to plow the rice fields, and when we went out to work in the fields, of course all of us went out to work in the fields, but I did not pay particular attention to any assignment given to any particular individual, and that was the case for Saint Srun. I did not know that he was assigned to climb palm trees.
Did you ever see him up in a palm tree?
During the regime, if you were assigned to do any particular task, you had to do it. In the case of Saint Srun, if he was assigned to climb palm trees, even if he didn't know how to climb, he had to try to climb, otherwise his life would be at risk.
Do you know whether he ever received an instruction or an order to guard and accompany a large group of Cham who had been arrested?
No, he did not involved in the arrest of the Cham people, to my knowledge. We, the civilians, did not have anything to do with the Cham people.
Well, yesterday he claimed in his testimony that he was very instrumental in the collection and accompanying of a large group of Cham who had just been arrested. As a matter of fact, he was even saying he brought them to the entrance of the pagoda and even went inside the pagoda in the temple. Is that an accurate statement of him?
President, witness, please hold on, and the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Mr. President, perhaps, I mean, it's a leading question. I think the evidence clearly is not that he was instrumental in taking the Cham to the pagoda. I think that's very misleading. And so perhaps I would ask that counsel quote act more accurately so that this witness is not misled.
It's no doubt my English, but I think instrumental was a fair summary of his testimony. However, no problem. I will read, Mr. President, the excerpt from his OCP statement. Mr. Witness, I will read to you a small excerpt from the testimony of Seng Srun in relation to what he said he had done. sorry, that's document E3/5302, English 00210488, Khmer 00635 and French 00623191. Quote, I was asked to lead 200 to 300 Cham and walk them to the O Trakun temple. Female Cham people were just walked. The Cham men were handcuffed and beaten. I was one of the 2 people leading the group. There were another 2 people guarding the back. The 4 of us were palm tree climbers. When we arrived at the temple, security guards and executioners were there to take the Cham people. The person who told me to gather the Cham was Hun, who was my unit chief. No, I think that's fairly instrumental. But Mr. Witness, do you know whether Seng Srun was involved?
Your Honour, just for the record,
President, please hold on, Mr. Witness, and the co-prosecutor, you have the floor.
Your Honour, this is not an objection as such, but for the record, counsel said that that was the testimony he gave yesterday. That wasn't his testimony. That was a statement that was given a number of years ago, just for the record.
Well, I think I said it was his interview to prosecution. I did say that. I mentioned also the E3 number, so there's no mistake, I think, as to where this particular evidence is coming from. So again, Mr. Witness, Seng Srun is giving evidence as to his role in the walking, accompanying and gathering of Cham who were led to the executioners at O Trakun temple. Based on your knowledge, based on your time in the same village and in the commune, is that an accurate statement of his activities?
President, please hold on, Mr. Witness. You may now proceed. International Deputy Co-Prosecutor.
Your Honour, this is a different objection in relation to the fairness of the question. This witness has given testimony that he actually wasn't in really a position to see who was actually rounding up the Cham people that were taken to the pagoda. And so asking him now to say whether that's the correct statement, I don't think that's a fair question.
Mr. President, I understand that prosecution tries to protect Mr. Seng Srun. However, this is not an ordinary villager. This is someone who was part of the commune militia, someone who was clearly knew what was going on. So to this particular witness, I think this is a question he should be able to answer.
Your Honour, this is a question in relation to a particular event which this witness has testified to, not to his knowledge of Seng Srun generally.
President, the objection by the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor to the last question put by counsel is overruled. Mr. Witness, you are instructed to respond to the question put to you by counsel, and if you cannot recall it, you may ask the counsel to repeat it. And also, counsel, please simplify your question so that witness can give you, clear answers.
Mr. Witness, would you like me to repeat the question, or do you still remember it?
Witness, yes. Could you repeat it?
I just read an excerpt from Sengsroon's statement, and based upon your knowledge and your position within the commune militia, I would like you to give a reaction. So I will read it again, and then I will ask your reaction. So this is what Sengsroon said. I was asked to lead 200 to 300 cham and walk them to the Wat Otrakun temple. Female cham were just walked. The cham men were handcuffed and beaten. I, Sengsroon, was one of the 2 people leading the group. There were another 2 people guarding the back. The 4 of us were palm tree climbers. When we arrived at the temple, security guards and executioners were there to take the cham people. The person who told me to gather the cham was Hun, who was my unit chief. So, Mr. Witness, this is Sengsroon's statement. Based on your knowledge of the time and the period, I would like to ask you to give a reaction, please.
Answer. I would like to answer the question. I have told the chamber already that after I had been reassigned into a cooperative, cham people were arrested. Let me clarify. The arrest of cham people were seen by me from afar and placed in the pagoda of Otrakun. I was seeing cham people were being walked past the kitchen, and I do not know whether Saint Sruna was tasked with leading cham people who had been arrested.
Have you ever heard later that Sengsroon was involved in leading this group of cham to the temple, to Wat Otrakun?
Answer. Since I was reassigned to another place, I do not know what was going on. I was working hard in the cooperative. As I told you, I could see cham people were being walked from afar, and I do not know about the statement of Saint Srun.
Sengsroon has been speaking yesterday quite a bit about a person with the name of Moon. Does the name Moon in relation to Wat Otrakun mean anything to you?
Answer. Muon, the contemptible Muon, he was within the security unit. His original birthplace was within Piem Knong.
Now I understand there might have been 2 moons. Is that correct?
Answer. I only know one Muon, the security guard. I do not know whether there was another Muon.
Do you know whether this Moon, the security guard, was also a palm tree climber?
Answer: no. He was only working in the guard unit. He never worked in base area.
How do you know for sure that Moon wasn't also a palm tree climber?
Answer: I could vouch for that. He was not the members of the palm climbing unit. He was working within security force.
Do you know whether Moon, the contemptible Moon, was a very close and good friend of Seng Srun?
Answer: I have no idea about that point. Saint Sruna was living and working together with me in the village. The contemptible Muon, regarding this person, I have never stayed close to him because he was vicious and he would take people to be killed. President, thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Winnet. It is now time for a short break. The chamber will take a short break from now until 3 o'clock. Court officers, in collaboration with VESU, please find a proper room for this witness during the break time, and please invite him and his duty counsel back into the courtroom at 3 o'clock. The court is now in recess.